The double bar chart, or the double vertical bar chart, is a variation, of course, of the vertical column or bar chart, where we have an extra category, an extra data series that we want to represent. So when would you use this? Well, we want to use it for comparing between categories, potentially over time, which that affords us with this type of chart. Especially we want to have two data sets that are similar, right? So that they're comparable, that it makes sense to actually put these two together, right? So we have to make sure that they make sense together. So let's just take a quick example where we were talking about HR in our previous example. So let's say we want to count employees, right? So our y-axis, number of employees, and the x-axis, let's just say, is time. So it could be years. We could be looking at years here. So we could say years. So each combination here would be, this would be maybe like 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, for example. And then we could give these color some meaning. So let's say this dark is female, and this blue here is male. And so then we have two categories that are relevant to each other. They make sense together. And we can see here in 2019, there were more female employees than male employees. And then over time, the overall count of employees has been dropping, as you can see. But also the ratio has changed. It's ended up where there's more male employees than female employees in 2023. So you can see how this is useful and how it would make a bit more sense, because that relationship is going to be easier to spot than if you were just comparing male on one chart, female on the other chart, right? And they're not together. So when you combine them like this into the double bar chart, double bar graph, it's easier to see the relationship between those two. So it just makes it easy to see. Ordinal data, again, just because this is columnar, you could do something similar with a horizontal bar, but because we're using the column or vertical bar, it's more suited to time, like in this example. So some things that we want to make sure that we're doing is we want to give a qualitative meaning to color. So it's to show that they're different categories. We have to be careful how we use the color. We also have to be careful how close we space these. Right, so we want these close together because we're looking for a relationship between them. Okay, so we want these close together. However, we also want to make sure that we're giving adequate space between them so we can see the difference. So that's something that we want to avoid, is making these things too close, right? So we don't want them too close together. A problem with this one is that, since we're adding more bars, we're doubling the amount of bars potentially. We might get a horizontal scroll again. So just like the vertical bar, by all costs, avoid a horizontal scroll. You might want to look at different chart types, combinations of charts, because that is far more preferable to having a horizontal scroll. It's just not a good user experience. We also want to avoid attention grabbing use of color. So unless we want to grab their attention, then fine. But we want to kind of keep these colors somewhat muted. So we're going to stay on the less warning type color. Oranges, stay away from yellows, stay away from reds. Right? So we generally want to have this color. Again, like in all our charts, we want to make sure we're driving some sort of action towards a question. So what question are we answering here? As well as what actions are we driving from this chart, from answering those questions. Now, if we do that, we're always generally going to end up with something that's useful, valuable. And when we work together with the end users in figuring out, well, what questions and actions are they driving, then we can figure out what's the best chart for them. Right? So this was the double bar chart, our vertical chart. Some things to just quickly note in a high level: keep some decent space, avoid horizontal scrolls, use sensible colors, and it works well for ordinal data or time series.